Shadowing. How accurate are smartwatches and are they good for your health? We're measuring the maximum amount of oxygen Dr. Richard Camp's body can use, otherwise known as his VO2 max. It's the gold standard for measuring a person's cardiovascular fitness. But how does an expert physiologist with all these machines compare to this? A smartwatch. Recent study shows a general consensus on their strength and limitation. The study found logging how many steps you take is relatively accurate with most wearable. Things start to fall apart though when you try to track metrics like how many calories you're burning. Resting heart rate reading can be quite good, but some watches struggle once you start exercising. They can also find it difficult to track other metrics like blood pressure and the quality of your sleep. This test is rolling. In terms of what your Gartner predicted was 56, so about 10% off. The difference between these results is due to watch non-measuring Dr. Alka's oxygen level. It's estimates based on heart rate and speed. While it's not perfect, the devices are sold as an easy and accessible way of tracking your health and fitness. Everyday use for the general public, they're great to motivate fitness, to look at the amount of steps, track what their weight doing, again, calorie intake versus expenditure. I think it's getting people exercising simple by having the watch. Market data estimates more than 30-60% of Australians owned a smart wrist wearable, and demand is growing. Every brand uses different technology, which makes these things difficult for clinicians and researchers trying to figure out where smartwatches actually help us live healthier. All the tiny data points from this can be thought of as part of your digital twin. There's a version of you made entirely of your data. My principal areas of research is in sports science and strength and conditioning. Professor Sophia Nymph is a sports scientist working with elite level athletes. She makes use of their digital twins, including data from smart wearables to help maximize performance. Athletes have a very specific training environment that very different to the average consumer. For most people with a less disciplined lifestyle, the watches tend to provide less accurate data. I have different settings on my watch, and it shows me how the piece changes throughout the run. For some people, seeing those numbers can be vastly discouraging and may reduce their ability to maintain an exercise routine. We do need to acknowledge the negative that there is a psychological component to fully trusting and investing in a number on your watch. Professor Nymph suggests looking at trends over longer periods of time instead of obsessing over your daily digits. What more? We're measuring the maximum amount of oxygen Dr. Richard Oak's body can use, otherwise known as his VO2 max. It's the gold standard for measuring a person's cardiovascular fitness. But how does an expert physiologist with all these machines compare to this? A smartwatch? Recent studies show a general consensus on the strength and limitation. The studies found logging how many steps you take is relatively accurate with most wearables. Things start to fall apart though when you try to track metrics like how many calories you're burning. Resting heart rate reading can be quite good, but some watches struggle once you start exercising. They can also find it difficult to track other metrics like blood pressure and the quality of your sleep. In terms of what your Garmin predicted was 52, so about 10% of that relatively wet. The difference between these results is due to the watch not measuring Dr. Alcock's oxygen level. It estimates based on heart rate and speed. While it's not perfect, the devices are sold as an easy and accessible way of tracking your health and fitness. Everyday use for general public, they're great to motivate fitness to look at the amount of steps, track what they weight doing. Again, calorie intake versus expenditure. I think it's getting people exercising simple by having a watch. Market data estimates more than 36% of Australians own a smart wrist wearable, and demand is growing. Every brand uses different technology which makes things difficult for clinicians and researchers trying to figure out whether smartwatches actually help us live healthier. All the tiny data points from these can be thought of as parts of your digital twin. This version of you made entirely of your data. My principal area of research is in sports science and strength and conditioning. Professor Sapien Nifim is a sports scientist working with elite level athletes. She makes use of their digital twins, including data from smart wearables, to help maximize performance. Elite athletes have a very specific training environment that very different to the average consumer. For most people with a less disciplined lifestyle, the watches tend to provide less accurate data. I have different settings on my watch and it shows me how the piece changed throughout the run. For some people, seeing those numbers can be vastly discouraging and may reduce their ability to maintain an exercise routine. We do need to acknowledge the negative that there are psychological components to fully trusting and investing in a number on your watch. Professor Nithya suggests looking at trend over longer period of time instead of obsessing over your daily digit. Casey Ho, ABC News.